Good morning, CCDEH. I'd like to start off by welcoming everyone to I think this is our final conference meeting. Thanks everyone for attending all of the training sessions. I'd like to thank Hedgerow for sponsoring our training, our virtual trainings. A reminder that all past training videos and the annual meeting have been posted to the website under the video library tab, as is being shown right now. If you'd like to sign up, well, I guess you're not going to sign up for any more trainings, but you can always sign up for past trainings if you missed some under the events, and go back and look at any of those courses that you missed. Another reminder is, in order to get your CEU certificate after the training session is over, you must log into your member account and complete the evaluation. Please do not complete the evaluation early. We've had a few times that people have been completing their evaluation within the first 5 minutes of the presentation, and that kind of creates a little problem for us, because then we have to go back and monitor if you actually stayed on, so you can get your CEUs. We're asking you to complete them, all of your evaluations, by November the 5th, so that Cheryl can get those posted to your accounts. Let's see. Please remember to ask any questions in the Q&A. Don't add them to the chat. Put them in the Q&A box, and there will be some polling questions that are in there. So you'll see the Slido QR code that'll come up, that so you can participate in those Q&A, in those polling questions.
So make sure to have your cell phone handy or have another tab open to participate in the polls.
So with that, I'd like to introduce Freddie Ajin from the City of Vernon Environmental Health to start off with the Professional Development Committee's presentation on onboarding and mentoring. Take it away, Freddie.
Thank you, Dave, and good morning, everyone. And thank you all for joining, taking your time this morning to join us. I think we are the last presentation for this series, but we think it's going to be great. So we thank you again. We have a presentation prepared for you about the project that we've been working on, which is the onboarding and the mentorship project that we've been working on. But I have two great presenters that's gonna lead on that. And I think when we're done, Rick from Monterey also is gonna be presenting also with us on the IT side. So we'll introduce Rick after the professional development presentation is over. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our presenters this morning, which is Terri Williams and Adela Evans. So I will start off with Terri's bio, and then I will go to Adela's. As I think everyone probably on this morning now, Terri Williams has over 30 years of experience in environmental health. Terri retired in 2019. I can't believe it's been 2019 already since she retired, as the Director of Environmental Health for the County of Los Angeles Department of Public Health. Prior to that, Terri was the Director of Environmental Health for the County of San Bernardino. Over the years, Terri has been an active participant in numerous public health initiatives, expanding the traditional role of environmental health programs to improve the health and well-being of everyone in Los Angeles and San Bernardino counties. Terri has been an active member of the California Conference of Environmental Health Directors to CCDEH, which includes serving as a president, and currently she sits on the board of KHA also. Terri keep telling us how much she's enjoying retirement and spending time with family, especially her grandkids, and going RVing. Every time we try to get a hold of Terri, she's in some state that she don't even know what state she's in, but she's on RV going somewhere. And she also enjoy her second home hanging out in Lake Havasu. So we are so excited to have Terri here with us to do this presentation. Our next one is Adela, who I think is a rising star in environmental health. So it's kind of appropriate that we have Terri and Adela doing this presentation. Adela is currently the program manager for the Community Environmental Health Program in San Bernardino County, Environmental Health Department of Public Health. Adela oversees the regulation of food facilities, recreational health facilities, organized camps, detention facilities, plan check, and the list goes on. She has a bachelor's degree of science in biology and environmental science and a master's of public health in environmental and occupational health. And also a health certificate in health geoinformatics. Wow, I don't even know what that means, but that sounds cool. She has approximately 11 years of experience with EHS. Her experience includes project and program development, management, budget analysis, retail food, recreational health, housing inspections, foodborne illness investigation, and staff training. Outside of EHS, she has been an active member of the accreditation committee for the Department of Public Health, as well as the Quality Improvement Committee. She also participated in the 5th cohort of the California Leadership Academy for Public Health and focused on addressing food insecurity and food waste reduction. Lastly, but definitely not the least, Adela is a mother of 2 beautiful children, and she's been married, has been married to the love of her life for about 12 years. She enjoys camping. She enjoys going to the beach, playing soccer and tennis, and going to concerts and comedy clubs. But most of all, she loves spending time with her family and grateful for all the God's blessings. So like I said, we have 2 great speakers this morning. So without further ado, I introduce you to Terri Williams and Adela Evans. Thank you.
You're muted, Adela.
Sorry, I double clicked. Thank you, Freddie, for that warm introduction. And I am so grateful to be part of this project because Terri and Freddie have been my mentors going through this career. So throughout this presentation, we will have some polling questions because the project we're working on will include some feedback from you guys. So I'm going to start off by talking about what our committee is, which is the Professional Development and Outreach Committee. So I don't know if you guys know too much about it, but if you don't, now's a good time to learn. So Tim, do you mind doing the next slide, please? So to start off, let's start with a polling question. Who or what inspired you to pursue a career in environmental health? So who or what inspired you to pursue your career in environmental health? I came to this profession by accident. My mom or my parents wanted me to get a job ASAP, or this was my dream job since I can remember. I want to see, well, the mom one's going back a couple percent. I came to this profession by accident. Wow.
So you got 25 answers up there in the upper right, 26.
Okay, awesome. That's great.
Adela, I think I came to this profession by accident includes I needed a job, and with my degree, it was the only place I could get a job at the time.
You know, I have to attest to that too. I kind of came into this job by accident too. So, but what a blessing, you know, it's been a incredible career. So thank you guys for participating on this. We got 32, anybody else?
So am I the only one that my mom told me to get a job?
Right.
And I actually went to school for this, so I'm actually a B.
That's so funny. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for participating. So some of this information we may use for our project, we may not, but we appreciate your input. So you guys ready to learn about our committee, the Professional Development and Outreach Committee? So this committee that we're a part of is one of 8 committees that we have in CCDEH. And the responsibility of this committee is actually to develop opportunities for our REHSs in the field and also conduct outreach among legislators and local government elected officials, staff, and the public. So some of the goals of this committee is to improve recognition of the environmental health field and the expertise required. You know, there's a lot of laws coming down the pipeline. So one of the goals that we have too is to influence and weigh in on those policy changes in environmental health. To encourage and support the development of staff through training and education and resources, and advance and expand upon existing development efforts. So expand on some of the tools that we already have, specifically related to our REHS and environmental professionals, environmental health trainees, interns, and students on an environmental career path. And I want to give a big thanks. I know I'm pretty new to this committee, but when I stepped in, there's been so much that has already been developed, and I want to give a big shout out to Becky, who started putting a lot of things together for this committee. Do you mind doing the next slide, Tim, please?
Hey, Adela, I just want to add right here that by the poll that was just given, we found that almost everybody came upon this career as an accident. And that really goes to the goal of improving recognition of environmental health as a field. And so over the course of many, many years, that hasn't changed that much. So we really want to emphasize trying to get people wanting to go to school and wanting a degree in environmental health and wanting to work in our field. Secondly, this is your opportunity. Adela mentioned it earlier. We don't get to do the whole, have opportunities to talk to everybody too often. So please put in your input on what could help us in these areas. And really be thinking about that. And if you send it, we're going to consider it and put it into our presentation next as we're videotaping here in the very near future. Thanks.
Hey, Terri, I want to just mention also that my experience with environmental health getting into the career was that I had all the training that I needed, but I didn't really know about the profession. And my dad, who worked for the state, actually told me about environmental health when there was a job opening in Napa. And when I looked at the field of environmental health and matched it to my career goals in college, it was a perfect fit. And I just didn't know about it. So to echo your point that we've got to get the word out about the profession of environmental health much better than we currently have been doing. So just want to add to your point.
Thank you,
Adela. Thank you. Next slide, please, Tim. Thank you. So the focus of our Professional Development and Outreach Committee are training resources, logistics, outreach, and assessment, and onboarding. So like I mentioned, Becky and the rest of her team got together and put together a almost like a strategic plan and outline and things to aim for. So some of them are working on training resources, such as compiling or developing initial training documents, and updating and expanding a library of training resources. Also developing an online training portal, and outreaching to community colleges and four-year institutions, and including materials for administration and faculty to talk about the benefits of establishing a stepping stone program for environmental health. And then also assessing what our EHS trainees know and learning and what they need to know. So there's a lot of stuff that this committee is planning on and working on, but for this particular presentation, I want to focus on the advancements of what this committee is doing in 2021, specifically our mentoring and onboarding program. Terri, do you have anything you want to add to this one?
No, no, I'm good. I will say that, you know, everybody has a full-time job as a director of your department, and it's hard to allocate time to something kind of outside of the box like professional development. But as you watch this presentation, think about things that you can join in and that won't take too much of your time away from your job, but we really need help. All you retired directors, this is a perfect opportunity for you to get involved as well.
Thanks, Terri. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight that this committee does, and Tim, go ahead, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. Is did you know that the CCDEH training series that started back in the fall, or I mean, not back in fall, back in early in April, and the one that we're having now actually started from this committee. You know, with the pandemic happening, we had to think of a way of how can we get training out there, but during such a tumultuous time. So you know, they started the virtual series. So I hope you guys had a chance to experience a lot of what it had to offer. I know I appreciated our current public health director got to present in the first one, so that was a fun experience. So I hope you guys are enjoying these training series, because I know it benefits not only, you know, you guys, but our upgrowing profession. So thank you. And so without further ado, the main point I wanted to talk about was our onboarding and mentoring project. So Tim, do you mind jumping on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So this is a big project that our committee has started working on pretty heavily on different materials. And so when I'm talking about onboarding first, I'm talking about onboarding to our CCDEH program in KHA. So if you don't mind, Tim, do you mind jumping on to the next slide, please? So this project is focused on a 3-part virtual / online modules, and they're going to be focused on one, onboarding to these 2 awesome programs, CCDEH and KHA, which includes talking about your history and changes and bylaws. And so for those of you that have attended the conferences for CCDEH in the fall, the new members usually come in and get to hear about the bylaws and stuff like this. This is going to be part of it. So it can be consistent and interactive. It'll be pretty fun. And then the second part of this project is also optimizing membership engagement. So how do we get members to be engaged more into the committees and the tax and the regional and policy committees? And last but not least, which Terri, I'm sure, can speak to a lot, is our mentoring the current directors and our upcoming directors. And so we'll talk about that towards the end of our presentation. So in the next upcoming slides, I want to give you a little taste of what this project, if you guys know what CCDEH is, the California Conference of Directors of Environmental Health. And then also KHA, which is the California Association of Environmental Health Administrators. I know that's a mouthful, but do you guys know what they do, what they are for? And so remember, this is a little snippet of what our project's going to be like. So these are organizations, are nonprofits that are leading advocates for an authoritative voice in all local environmental health matters in California. And so I'll give you a little bit more details on each program. So CCDEH is a 501c3 organization that represents our environmental health directors, managers, and supervisors, as well as other allied environmental health professionals, and serves as the main networking and policy body for local environmental health California. KHA is the allied 501c4 advocacy and business arm of environmental health that lobbies the California legislature and regulatory agencies and provides temporary staffing through contracts. So for those of you that maybe in the past have needed mutual aid, they have been such huge proponents for that. And I know KHA has been a huge supporter for San Bernardino County. So thank you guys for that. So now you have a little bit of an idea of what CCDEH and KHA stand for.
Adela, I'll add to what you say. As far as I know, CCDEH and KHA are one of its kind in the United States. I've gone to some meetings with NEHA, and they were an advocate for using CCDEH as a model for other states to follow. And the main point being that even a county as large as Los Angeles County, your voice is much bigger as a group. And so having CCDEH and KHA to advocate for environmental health issues on behalf of every county is really a big plus. And again, it's one of its kind throughout the United States, and many, many other states wish to be like California in that respect. Not all respects, but in that respect.
That's awesome. It's nice being able to have a voice and speak up on some things that are coming down the pipeline. I know.
Absolutely. Adela, not just having a voice, but having a collective voice, because especially sometimes some of the smaller counties, they don't have a big voice for advocating for legislation. And sometimes big counties like LA County are skewed in their thinking. So having a collective voice for large, rural, and big counties together and coming to consensus and being able to speak on behalf of the whole state is a big plus for advocating for legislation and new environmental health issues.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Terri. In the upcoming slides that I wanted to share with you guys, Cheryl was awesome, was able to pull some of photos from back in the past, and you can see the revolution, or evolution, I should say, of CCDEH and the things that have changed. And, if you look at the actual history, you can see not only has it become more diverse, but, through the laws that have come through, you can see a lot of the positive changes. So I'm looking forward to sharing those photos with you, and I'm sure Terri would like to share some of her comments on those. But I'll touch on, since I have you guys, I have an audience, so I'm going to talk. So as far as CCDEH and KHA goes, like Terri said, this is a big thing that not a lot of states have. So it's good to know about it and take advantage of it, so we can help our communities with these laws that are coming through. So I'm going to touch on a little bit more on our mentorship project now. So part of it is not only talking about these two programs, but also the aim of, let me go to my slides notes really quick, but also what these programs have to offer. So I don't know if you guys are on part of the other committees, but the second piece of this project is to start engaging membership.
While Adela's and Tim are working on fixing their slide, I'll just add that, being a part of CCDEH and participating in the policy committees, participating in the regional committees, it's really a lot more than just being engaged in the group. It's an opportunity to make a difference. I think that over my 30 plus years or 40 years, whatever it was, in my career, that the best part of my whole professional career was when I was directly involved in part of the executive committee at CCDEH. When you're there, you actually have a vote, you're speaking on behalf of your region, you're on top of all the current issues, and staying focused and staying involved in CCDEH through things like policy committees and going and attending regular and participating in regional meetings is how you get there. And it's just so very important.
All right, you guys, what has your experience been as an environmental health professional? A, very fulfilling. I get to do what I love every day. B, I have no idea what I was getting myself into. C, it's been challenging, but it pays the bills. D, all of the above.
I think I added all of the above, Adela.
Oh, you gotta have a catch-all.
We got somebody that needs to mute their speakers, I think.
Got a couple, I have no idea what I was getting myself into. 23 down, anybody else? 24. I'm liking A. I'm glad people are choosing A. It is a great profession to be in. I think I'm preaching to the choir though. Most of you guys have been here and know the ropes. I appreciate that you guys, are inspiring others. Awesome. Anybody else? I see
Adela,
25. Yes.
Adela, one of the things I can say about that is that while I had no idea what I was getting into in the beginning, it's something new every single day. That's one of the things I love about my job.
Very true. I agree. Same here.
And it never goes away, even after retirement.
Yes.
I would say that environmental health is like Hotel California. You can check in, but you can never leave.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys for your participation. I see 28. Anybody else want to jump on? Hey, that's a great answer. Awesome. Thank you guys. So I think I spoke about this earlier a little bit about what CCDEH and KHA are.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, Tim, going on to the next slide. So this is the fun part of the presentation that I was excited to share. Like I said, Cheryl was able to pull some of these pictures that provide a little bit of history. And I tried to, there's a lot more photos, but I tried to kind of separate them almost by decades. So you can kind of see the evolution of the program. So I don't know if you know, but CCDEH was established back in 1956. As you can see, it's black and white photos. But this photo is actually, I want to say, taken in 1958. So 2 years later.
And I want to know how many people, we should have done a poll question, how many people were born at 1956 when CCDEH started? I'd venture to say that CCDEH is older than most of us.
Yeah, it's been around, but it's a great program. Next slide, please, Tim. So as you can see, it has evolved through the years. This photo was taken in 1969.
Notice the gender is still, 12 years later, is still all men.
Quite a diverse organization. Some are a little younger than the others, so you have it's
that's
all white
where you
guys.
got your diversity, right?
That's right.
Next slide, please. This one's from 1979.
And Adela, quick question on that, maybe Tim or Dave, one of you can. Was it also the reason why it was all men back then? Was most of these folks came from the military, the sanitarian?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either, Freddie, but I did hear that from Joan Mulcair, who was a longtime program manager and director in San Bernardino. She was a director in Marin County, I think. But she came from the military, and she indicated that to me at that time that a lot of previous directors and environmental health folks did come from the military.
Interesting. And then next slide, please. This one's from 1990. I see Tim in there.
Hey. With hair.
Awesome. And then the next photo is.
I was going to try to show you. Can you see my mouse?
Yes.
I think that's Bob Merriman right there of the Bob Merriman Award.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Is Dick Roberts in there someplace?
He's right up here. No, Dick Roberts? No, that's Dick Swenson. I don't think Dick Roberts was in this. And then Gary Urbach of the Gary Urbach Safety Award. So, and Stu Adele, I mean, these are some long time, some of the early recalls, the watermelon recall incident, a lot of issues around that with Stu Adele. And So anyway, some real good old timers. This is fun for me to see.
There's Diane Evans, the first woman.
Oh, right
President.
there. Yeah, I see her.
Oh, yeah, she is back there.
That's awesome. Yeah, back
Oh, there
in
she is.
1990.
She was
Next
the
to-
first woman president in 1999.
Awesome. Thank you. And the next one is from 2001. The 46th annual conference. Very cool.
So
The
Tenaya
number of
Lodge.
women is increasing.
Yeah.
Nice
True.
pictures.
Watch out, guys.
The next photo is from, oh, I forgot about the poll. Sorry about that. We can do the poll. If given the opportunity to start over, would you choose a different profession? A, I like what I'm doing and I wouldn't change a thing. Or B, get me out of here. This is not what I envisioned when I signed up. All right, 8 people, 10 people. Ah, that makes me so happy. That's awesome.
Nobody would dare put B.
We've all felt like it on some days, like a board meeting presentation that went awry, or when you're having one of those days. But I think that.
And there are a few of those days, Tim. You're right. We'd
Yeah.
all not be telling the truth if we didn't say there weren't days where we said, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, when I'm at a fee hearing and all the restaurants are there yelling at me, and that's not my favorite day, but it is part of the journey.
Mhm. Well, the cool thing about this mentoring and onboarding and mentoring project is some of our former directors will share some of their experiences and advice. So feel free to speak up if you guys want to share in the future.
Yeah, I will tell you that there's an interesting thing that happens in this field of, some of the most difficult conversations and difficult meetings I've had have led to some of the best relationships I've ever had with people too, as you work through things. So there's hope when you have those conflicts and then you find common ground and all of a sudden you're on the same side of the issue and there's a real evolution that can happen. So don't get discouraged when you encounter those difficult moments in your career.
Thanks, Tim. Well said. All right, we got a couple more photos to show. This is from 2014. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. This one, I'm just kidding. This one's from 2009, and then the next one is from 2014. So these are a little bit more recent. And then
Notice most of us girls are in dresses starting in this one.
mhm.
There's a lot of females in this photo.
There is. Go girls.
The next photo, Terri, I'm not sure the year. Maybe one of you guys know the year for this one.
I was either president or elect or president for this year. So it must have been 2018 or 2019.
18.
18.
The famous diamond incident.
Oh yeah, that was that year, huh? I remember it well.
Awesome. And then the next few slides, next one's from
Well,
28.
let me just mention, you'll notice in these photos, you can see the camaraderie of the organization. And that is one of the most powerful elements of being a member of CCDEH is the camaraderie you have, you're going to get into that, I'm sure, when you talk about the mentoring. But the group is, this is like the best meeting each year that I would attend was the annual conference. And I do look forward to getting back in person with everyone because the conversations you have, and I don't want to steal your thunder, so.
No, please.
But it's just so great to be able to commiserate, to pick people's brains about issues and problems you're encountering, whether it's personnel or programmatic. And there's so much wisdom and insight that people have in this organization. And, pretty much any issue you're dealing with, somebody else is dealing with or has dealt with, and they can give you some great advice. And you don't get that in all organizations. And so CCDEH is very unique and very powerful in what it can bring to your professional growth and development and personal growth and development.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I believe this photo was from 2018. And I'm not, is this one in Dana Point? Or I'm not sure where this one was at.
No, that one's at Oxford in Ventura,
In Ventura.
at the Mandalay Bay in 2019.
Awesome. And then the last two photos were from the, I want to say the last in-person conferences we had. Was it Squaw Valley?
Squaw, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is now Palisades Squaw.
Yeah.
And I echo what Tim said, because I'm looking forward, even as a retired director, to on-site conferences again. I would never have met as many people in the field of environmental health and talked to, network, maybe had a cocktail or two with a couple of them. And you work hard all day. We have nice dinners. Cheryl does a fabulous job putting them together, but we really rely on the information we get from each other. It's just fabulous conferences.
Awesome, thank you. I think there was one more photo. Yeah, that was the last one, I believe. Oh.
Look at all those girls. Sorry, I don't mean to keep repeating that.
No,
This is 2019.
I want to say yes. 2019. Yeah,
this
that was the last
was the
one.
last in-person conference. But I want to add also, I think, as we're talking about professional development, this in itself is professional development. When I think both Tim and Terri has alluded to, when you go to these conferences and all that, the knowledge and stuff you gain and come back with is really, you understand, at least personally, how directors operate, what challenges they're doing, what they're doing as an associate member. Also, able to learn those things going to a conference like this, where I get to meet all the directors. But what really for me works is able to know folks that I can pick up a phone and call when I need something. And it was through the conferences that I have that relationship that's easy to, call the Mike Valley and folks like that, because you're able to meet with them. You're not, they're not up north somewhere with just a name. So I think this also extends to part of the professional development that we're talking about.
And I'll add, Freddie, that it doesn't matter how busy you are in your job. If another director calls you, you pick up the phone. And it's just been that way for years and years. We're there for each other and we speak the same voice. And it's just something that doesn't go away after the 5 days of the conference. It lasts year round. And we've always been there for each other. And it's a fabulous organization.
Yeah, I would mention that each year when the new dates are set for the next year's conference, that was one of the first things to go on my calendar to block it out, because I never saw the annual conference as an optional kind of event to attend, because it was always so critical to my professional growth and development. I would always book it and made it a priority to attend, and I would encourage everyone else to do the same for their own well-being. You get so much out of it. You just can't even imagine.
17 of those people in the picture have retired in the last year and a half.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
That's why it's so important to mentor, right? Gotta have those people ready to go.
Right.
Thank you. So the other piece, this is still part one that I wanted to talk about, was the training on the bylaws. So your the processes, or policy procedures. So within CCDEH, there are bylaws. From what I understand, it's about a 64-page document, and it talks about voting, membership. And Terri, you can elaborate on this, but it's a lot to digest.
I think my own personal opinion is that a successful onboarding of any sort starts with a really strong introduction. And in the field of environmental health, when you hire a new employee, none of us just throw them out there. They go through a training program when they're promoted, or move to another program, they go through a training program. And when you become a director or a member of CCDH, it's just really important to start with a strong introduction as a new director. And I think the first step of that is to, I'm sorry, I talk with my hands. The first step of that is to communicate the groundwork of the organization. And to get that, you can get this through these bylaws and policy and procedure manual. And there's things you learn that, gosh, for years, I was a regional member and a director, but I didn't know I could go to the executive meetings, and you can go, you just can't vote. So there's a lot you learn, and it's really important. You can learn the bylaws, the budgets, the rule of order, and it's just something that we all need to take the time to read when you become a new director or before.
Thank you. And Tim, you might want to click a couple of times.
Yeah, I think that, well, let me just say that I think that the, oh yeah.
Sorry.
I think that there's a lot of, obviously a lot of information in the bylaws, but when you find yourself asking yourself the question of why does CCDH do it this way? Usually the answer is in the bylaws. And there's such a wealth of information. If you really want to understand the organization, really want to truly understand the difference between KHA and CCDH, this is the place to go and to really dive into. And especially if you're on a committee, and everyone should be on a policy committee, everyone's certainly on a regional committee. But this, this can give guidance to you and a real understanding of what the goals are of each of those committees.
And there's also a culture within the organization, and that culture is built on what the values are of CCDH. And those values include things like what the roles and responsibilities are of being a director to CCDH. It talks about accountability, sometimes even talks about behavior. You have to remember, as a director of environmental health, you're representing all of us as directors of environmental health. Most of this can be found in reading and understanding the documents that are included there.
Thank you, guys. So it looks like we have another polling question. I feel like my job matters, and I believe I'm making a difference in the community that I serve because environmental health rocks. Feels like every day is a new adventure, and I get to be a part of a team that makes a difference in the community. I have a stable job, and I get paid every 2 weeks.
I know that when I've had so many different experiences over my career, but when you help someone as simple as getting a septic permit, and they're building their dream house, and you get to see the smile on their face that they've checked off another box in that permitting process, and they're closer to fulfilling their dream. It's a very rewarding moment that you can have if you stop and take a moment to just say, wow, that's really cool. I got to help this person realize their dream a little bit and be a part of their journey. And so I would encourage you, when you have your successes, to pause for a moment and just really kind of have a little celebration, whether you do a little mini me dance or whatever your moment is, how you celebrate. It can be really rewarding.
Yeah, those little victories add up. They make a difference. So thank you. So the next few slides, I want to talk about the other two pieces of our onboarding and mentorship project that we're working on. So we just talked about the actual learning the history and the bylaws of CCDEH and KHA. The second part we're doing on the mentorship and onboarding project is optimizing membership, or member engagement. And so just so you guys know, I don't know if you know, but CCDH has an executive committee, which encompasses a president, president-elect, secretary-treasurer, immediate past president, and the chair from each of the 4 regions and chair from each policy committee. So it's a large committee that, really get together and make decisions. And then there's also the 4 regional committees, as well as 8 policy committees and 12 technical advisory committees. So there's a lot of where you can network, learn what other people in the state are doing. I know I've taken advantage of some of these opportunities when I joined CCDEH, not knowing what I was getting myself into, but have found them very, very useful and a lot of the changes that are happening throughout the state. And I can elaborate a little more on the committees if you like. So we are.
Adela, before you go on, I just want to mention something. I want you to all take a second to think about that. These policy committees that Adela is going to talk a little bit more about, I think. As a director, you're not expected to be the expert in every area of environmental health, but you're expected to be knowledgeable and stay on top of what's happening. It's almost impossible for a director to stay on top of everything if they didn't have these policy committees and these regional meetings. You can go to one meeting a month at a regional meeting, and you have a representative who sits on the policy committee, and you can get firsthand information from that person. So saves you a lot of time. It keeps you on top of the pertinent issues. And I can't emphasize that enough. If you try to stay on top of everything all by yourself, you're just gonna be in a tizzy. But if you rely on your regional meetings and you attend every month, that is how you're gonna stay on top of everything that the volunteers in the policy committee are working and reporting back. So very important. These regional and policy committees, in my opinion, is the meat and potatoes of our whole organization. And that's what makes it work. And that's what makes you a better director.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. So, I mean, we're talking about our committee right now. And then there's also emergency preparedness, food safety, which I'm also a part of, hazmat, water and land policy, solid waste, information and technology, which I believe Rick is going to talk about in a little bit. But there's so many committees that you can get involved in to help your jurisdiction align with the rest of the state and kind of know how to handle those oddball situations that we all encounter. So I will go into any more of that. But the last piece that we're working on, this is the third piece of our project, is the mentoring of current and upcoming directors. So I think one of you guys, I think it was Cheryl that mentioned earlier that quite a few directors have retired very recently. So that means there's going to be new directors coming into place. And so having that large amount of people exit and upcoming directors, there might be a shortage of institutional knowledge there. So this project will kind of fill in that gap a little bit by having these former directors share a lot of their knowledge. And so some of these things that we're going to be working on right now, and Terri and Freddie have a big part of it, is interviews and info sharing with the former directors and having them talk about their roles and responsibilities, how they've led by example, how they forged stronger partnerships with their, stakeholders in their jurisdiction, dealing with politics, which we all deal with every day, advocacy for certain things, and if they have any take-home advice. So if you don't mind advancing to, one more poll question. Have you mentored a new staff member? If not, would you be open to becoming a mentor? Yes and yes, yes and no, no and no, no and yes. We have some people that have mentored and would be open to becoming. And we have some that would be willing to mentor even though they haven't. That's awesome.
I think this speaks to the culture of the organization of CCDEH, is that, I feel like most of us, or many of us, have encountered the situation where you're learning one day and then you're teaching it the next day. And it's just kind of the culture of our field. And I think this mentoring thing is part of our DNA. So this is very encouraging to see.
I agree. Thank you. Awesome. Anybody else? We got 21 in, 22. Oh, this is exciting to see. Awesome. Well, last slide, guys. Thank you for hanging in there with me. So the next steps for our onboarding and mentoring project is we're currently putting together some photos and materials for our modules. And then on November 5th, we're working with a group called Urban Harvester. They're going to be filming some of our former directors, like Miss Terri Williams over there, and Lou and Jamie will be part of our filming, and so we'll be hearing some of their experiences as well. And then I want to give a big shout out to Tim and Cheryl as well, because they're helping put a lot of the materials together. And so they'll be some of our stars in the videos. And then Urban Harvester will edit the film and combine a lot of our materials to get it going and package up nicely. And we aim to have it complete by January 2022. And hopefully you guys can use it sometime afterwards. So with that, do you guys have any questions, comments? Terri, Freddie, feel free to elaborate on anything I missed out on.
Adela, Adela's been the inspiration in this project. A big thank you to you. Appreciate all you've done on putting this together and your continued work on it. So thank you very much.
I want to add, and thank you, Adela. It was great. CCDEH is, I think, Tim, you said earlier, it's a Hotel California. You can check in anytime, but you can check out. It's a great organization. And as we build on this program development, I think this is where we need everybody kind of hands on deck. Any ideas that you have that we need to explore? I shared that with Justin that, we need to take it one at a time and get things that are actually meaningful to our members and provide tools like this onboarding training. When you have 17 directors retired and you have new ones coming in, able to have access to information like this, where all this information that's out there is condensed, is really critical, and it's a good thing for us to have that. So we look forward to having those training, but this is one of many that we're hoping to achieve with this program. So I thank you very much. We don't want to take all the time away from Tim. So, from Rick. I think Rick is next. So
we were worried about not having enough to say.
Yeah, we'll open it up for questions, and then Rick can step in. Well, thank you again. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Rick, you are one-man show today because Jeff is not here. But I think many of us, we all know Rick from Monterey County. But Rick began his career in environmental health through the 90s while serving the U.S. Navy. Thank you, Rick. You see, you proved that most of them came from the military. As a hospital corpsman, preventive medicine technician, in 1999, Rick then earned his REHS with the County of San Diego Department of Environmental Health, Food and Housing Division. In 2003, Rick received CAHA's Stuart Richardson Award in recognition for his contribution to environmental health through education. Rick also went on to complete his master's degree in 2005 at San Diego State University Graduate School of Public Health, where he was also recognized as the environmental health outstanding student for his graduating class. Rick, you are an overachiever, my friend. In 2011, he completed work with the CDC Environmental Public Health Leadership Institute as a graduate fellow, where he learned fundamental principles on how to make a difference in the field and bring about positive and meaningful change. No further ado, you're on, sir.
Thank you so much for that great introduction, and I'm really proud to be on the same day as the Professional Development Committee. I really think it's a really good tie-in, and the significance and importance of how we share the same space to get everybody thinking. And I really look forward to the Q&A at the end of our sessions. Good morning, CCDEH and members. Again, Rick Encarnacion, County of Monterey. I'm here to update you as members, to reintroduce this committee, the IT committee, our purpose and our goals. My presentation also has some polling questions, and I hope that some of the questions, spur on some discussion. And before I move on, just reflecting back on the last presentation, I'd like to mention some keywords to get you all thinking on how this IT committee, IT database committee could help serve you. like keywords like networking, customer service, backup data, data loss, security of data, records retention, automation, standardization, inventory, tracking, outreach, social media, dashboards. We love that word. Training, informatics. That was a good one. Really good tie into IT. Payroll, performance measures, stakeholder communication, budgeting, planning. And for those departments that are tied into health departments, data share is very important. So with that, just to get your minds going, next slide, please. So, as Freddie mentioned, I am one of two co-chairs. Jeff Warren took on and volunteered to be co-chairs following the departure of Mike Vallier, who was the former chair, and I see is also in the audience, when Mike transitioned into his new role as Deputy Director of Santa Clara County's Public Health. Jeff Warren from the County of El Dorado is the Environmental Management Department Director over there in Placerville. And I, again, am the Acting Bureau Chief for the County of Monterey. Next slide. This is a screenshot from our CCDEH webpage of the other members of the committee. And, we're open. Feel free to join in and provide your service and support here. The IT committee, we're scheduled to meet via conference every even-numbered month on the third Thursday at 3 p.m. The IT committee, however, did not meet in fiscal year 2020, but will resume meetings soon in December of 21. So with that, let's see, next slide. The Information Technology Data Management Committee, or IT committee, works to address information technology and database management system issues, including providing input on pending IT-related legislation or supporting the IT needs of new legislation. The IT committee also provides oversight for CCDEH and KHOW websites, membership communication listservs, and manages the IT-related business needs of the organization. The committee identified the best available economical and appropriate technologies to fill the organization's mission with a focus on usability, making sure the data works for us and we don't work for the data. The IT committee also facilitates communication with Adela, or Software and Vision Connect, from an executive viewpoint and may evaluate other database solutions for member agencies. Lastly, the IT committee works with other stakeholders to ensure new environmental health data requests are coordinated among interested parties. These typically include GeoTracker, STRS, and any other statewide database required by state agency partners. Next slide, which is our first polling question.
So as a reminder, everybody, this is a different code. The 2468 is a different code if you're using your web browser. The QR code, if you're on your phone, will pick up the right code password. So go ahead, Rick.
So it's pretty basic. What is your primary database permitting software used in your jurisdiction? Envision, Acela, or other? And for those who answer others, just maybe put it in the chat and maybe we can kind of like get an overview of what other people are using. All right, 14 so far. Envision. People on Acela, I didn't see any other. It's pretty interesting.
So we've got 19 responses you see up there in the upper right, Rick?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next polling question. So the next polling question is, because we know Envision Connect's transition, are you in the process of or considering transitioning your current database permitting software to another product within the next 3 years? Yes, 100%. So with that, what ways we'd like to think about how can we as the IT committee help here. Jeff and I have talked about creating some type of clearinghouse to be a hub of information to list points of contact among the different jurisdictions, maybe even create some type of consumer report related to platforms and software. It's a heavy lift, but I think it's a pretty interesting venture to look into to serve our membership. All right, next slide. So obviously the first project the current committee had was to volunteer. So Jeff and I volunteered to co-chair the committee. And here's a list of some of the current activities that we've inherited and we'll keep working on to make sure that we update and refine the CCDEH website. We also plan to continue to support the development of the KHA website, continue to migrate website files to Google Docs for archiving, definitely supporting the online video library and course evaluations. Just from the last presentation, we're going to see just how crucial that is. Continue to support virtual conferencing, explore and facilitate open data initiatives, another modern approach to public health and environmental health, looking into other data and database management issues, and continuing with developing collaboration tools.
Hey, Rick, I just want to say that I don't know that people know the heavy lift that Mike Vallier did of getting the new website up and running, but it was amazing, all of the work he did to coordinate that with the new platform. And so I just want to give a big shout out to Mike Vallier for his work on the transition to the new website, which is working great. So thanks, Mike.
Definitely, thank you. Really big shoes to fill, and I think with the support of all the members and all the ideas, and definitely Mike is still there to help continue on the great work that needs to be done.
Now, second that, Tim. Mike was awesome. So no pressure, Rick.
I think that's why Jeff went on vacation. Anyway, other committee activities and issues. Updating definitely for budget spreadsheets for the IT committee, updating the online IT committee membership list, updating the IT submission issue list, another big thing to do, evaluating the different type workspaces, monitoring sales of the electronic disaster manual ebook, continuing to evaluate options for online stores and the online sales, and reviewing technology solutions to COVID-related issues. That's something to really think about. Next slide. So another poll. So in general, how much of your program's official records have primarily transitioned from being on paper into a digital format? And I'm not talking about paper backups. I'm talking about, how many of us first start, everything was on paper. Some probably even used carbon copies. But how many have actually transitioned? Yeah, there's still some, mostly some, yeah. And that's what I would have expected, that most would be in the some category. And a few who have gone all the way. Oh,
Let me just a reminder that I did a big scanning project when I worked in Butte County, and we had I don't know, it was about 200,000 pieces of paper or files, and over 1 million pieces of paper that we did a contracted out scanning project, and I had that in my budget every year since I first started working there in 2005, and finally in about 2015 it got funded, and I was shocked that it got funded. And it was such a great thing to have as we got certainly into the COVID world, to have all of our records, all of our paper files scanned and connected to every parcel of information and every permit. And even though you don't expect that it will get funded, I would encourage you to develop the cost of that scanning project to get those paper files completely scanned. So just want to encourage people to do that. Even though it doesn't get funded, it will get funded eventually when there's some money, and it's imperative to, where we're going as a society. So thanks.
That's kind of part of the purpose of this question. Like, even if you look back at the excellence of environmental health submissions this year, 2 out of the 4 were projects on digitizing processes and information. That's how, and it's difficult. It's a difficult project, just piece by piece within your whole organization of the different programs that you have, piecing apart something, breaking it down, and trying to get it into a digital format, getting all the stakeholders together, and the budgeting aspect of it. It's really, really a daunting task. And my hope is that the IT committee could help provide that service in terms of providing shared information on how to best work it, maybe some type of template or project management tool to help jurisdictions that may not have as much of the capacity to do so, to fulfill that type of task.
Yeah, one of the first parts is getting how much is that project going to cost?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the CMAS contracts, the state contracts where this has already been, an RFP has already been put out that's acceptable statewide in pretty much, I think, every jurisdiction, every city and county. So we can get information out to everybody on how to access that information, to streamline your RFP process, to get you a quote on what it would take to scan and index all of your information.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next polling question. Does your jurisdiction accept digital signatures on any official records? Because I know it's kind of hard to do all, but for any. Even in this day and age, there are still some jurisdictions where a digital signature may be controversial. It is really one of those simple things that you think in this modern times that a digital signature and all the checks and balances would be acceptable. But there are still some where an actual physical wet signature is required on a piece of paper.
So Rick, could you clarify for me what you mean by digital signature, like electronic signature versus digital signature? Can you just, so that
I was just plainly just whether it's a digital signature or something that is backed up by with a security level, anything like even a digital pen stroke, even if that is something that's acceptable.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, but that's a good question because there are all these different degrees of what is a digital signature, and what would be accepted by your county council, what would be defensible. Every record that we have would be an official record that you think forward thinking would be subject to litigation. So what is acceptable? And I think as we go through these processes, the IT committee could again be a hub of information on what works best or what is the best approach. Okay, future projects. Some of the future projects Jeff and I were thinking about, and also looking back at the past IT committee reports, to reevaluate the performance management pilot project and have a kind of defined. This is a definite IT database nexus when it comes to performance measures and performance management, because data is key. To identify IT business rules and data management needs. Now, for those of us who've probably been in like a workflow meeting and trying to define business rules where we think that it's very intuitive, actually putting it out in a specific business rule is a challenge. Developing continuing education modules for our EHS training. Evaluate the learning management system for CCDEH, seeing how we could probably roll that out if within the budget capacity. Creating an environmental health history page for the website. We saw those really great pictures and history, living history that we have. Evaluating the EH database providers and providing information and feedback on the CCDEH website. That's something that Jeff and I were talking about again, kind of like being a clearinghouse of information, maybe finding some volunteers that maybe provide some review and feedback, kind of like what Consumer Reports does. And I think that would probably be something that would be very beneficial for our membership, especially in this day and age where there's so, as we've seen through the poll, a lot of thinking about transitioning their database.
I think that's another good example about the database providers, about sharing RFPs. That can help quite a bit as each county has little different nuances of developing their own RFPs. It's nice to have a template to work from. So we should get various counties' RFPs up in the members-only area of the CCDH website.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Tim. Okay, next slide. All right, another polling question. Does your primary database collection and permitting software fully integrate with your payroll accounting system? Do your staff need to do double entry, or are you able to have one single user experience from field to payroll? So far we have 4. All right. Oh, boy, there's more yeses than I thought there would be. Yeah, and again, this is where sharing of information would be very beneficial. Speaking from my own jurisdiction, there's just different agencies that have different proprietary software that have security issues, so they say. But I know, like as we see here, other jurisdictions, it's kind of like a single user experience, which is great for efficiency and performance measures and budgeting. To have this payroll, to have everything from field to payroll as one data entry point.
Yeah, this is a great question. I love this question. About we spent several years developing an API with our vendor at the time in Butte County to develop a paperless daily automatic deposit system that took the data from our permitting software and directly transferred it to the county's deposits. So we had a paperless actual daily deposit that we developed, and it greatly reduced errors. It actually eliminated errors. If there was an error, it was on the actual issuance of the permit or collecting of the money. And it's just in the world of APIs, which are application protocol interfaces, where you get two systems to talk to one another, this is all very doable. But it does take a plan and a good working relationship with your vendor, in our case, Excella, and your county and your IT department. So it's a great project, though, to work into your future plans.
Yeah, I agree, because having something like this in place, if able to do it, it's such a great thing to support fees, your performance measures and standards, how you can communicate the significance of what you do to your stakeholders, showing a return on investment in your activities. If for those jurisdictions that do have that, I do hope we could share information and provide that through the IT committee to assist other jurisdictions to maybe implement or try to find that pathway to get there. All right. Let's see. Next slide. All right. Another polling question. Are you currently or planning to utilize IT-supported methods to conduct field inspections such as virtual or augmented reality platforms? Wow. There we go so far too. Yes. I remember when I first started, and I even just brought up the concept of, hey, what if we went out to the field and instead of like writing every, just like the permit information down, that we had something like we could, a barcode, or this is before QR codes, I guess, but I just mentioned barcode and they said, Rick, we're dreaming. But like even now, look at what we're doing now, just a QR code asking questions. And I think, the concept of virtual or augmented reality platforms into environmental health, especially in this age of this pandemic kind of like opened our eyes to the possibilities. Still, we need a human to provide, we can't fully automate in REHS. But I think, these types of concepts we need to be open to. If we have the budget or plan towards it, that could really help us meet at least a public health goal of providing access to or giving access to the public to our services. So, any thoughts on that, Tim?
Not really. I think I was kind of looking at a question that just came in that I think is relevant to ask you now. It's how does the IT committee work with the other committees, since IT crosses over all program areas? Are you involved with other committees, or how is that connection made through CCDEH?
Actually, when I went through, when you go through our webpage, IT is pretty much on every committee because, again, it's moving of information, at a quicker, more efficient pace, and also getting information out there. And I think yes, I think the answer to that would be definitely yes.
Okay.
Especially nowadays with social media and how we've seen how information can literally move mountains, right? And,
yes.
And I think the speed of information is something to consider, the quality of information. As environmental health specialists, we usually come at things from an objective point of view, but information could be so subjective. For those in the professional development course, there's a course on there on how to talk to your board of supervisors. And a lot of them look at dashboards, bar graphs, pie charts. And these are the kind of things that may seem simplistic on the outset, but there's a lot of complicated ways to approach it. And it really is about communication, which is another aspect of professional development and leadership, and a tie-in to IT and data management.
Righto. On this question, I was just going to mention that back in about, 2015, I was trying to get some of my inspectors to consider the concept of virtual field inspections, on some remote sites, allowing contractors that we worked with to do video inspections. And everybody was against it. Oh, we can't trust them. No. And then comes COVID. And COVID kind of changed the conversation in what now became possible from what was previously impossible. And so I think there's such an opportunity to expand the scope and the vision of how we do things, especially with technology in the COVID world. And so it's just a real opportunity that I think shouldn't be missed by people, especially now with some funding sources opening up to fund some of these kinds of virtual inspections, virtual software that we would use to accomplish those things. So look for opportunities, talk to your peers and find out how they're doing it. And there's a lot of creativity going on right now, and we should definitely share that through the IT committee.
Definitely. And yeah, whenever it comes to like these new concepts, I think as a manager or director, program manager, the issue of accountability, right? Accountability has always been an issue, the trust factor. And I've always thought, and probably many of you out there do, that to offset the issues or concerns of accountability, no matter what the technology is you have to lean back on your standardization of your training efforts, the level of training of your standard operating procedures, and that you can prove that everyone has gone through it, and there's constant revisits on ensuring standardization. That's how you offset the issues of accountability when you come to new technology. And maybe that's another concept where there's a nexus between at least professional development committee and IT.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and that's great. Thank you. And that's how I kind of see this committee. I recall the first meeting Jeff and I attended with the executive committee, and Justin mentioned, the IT committee is not just about information. It's about how this information can work for environmental health. And that's true. And information technology, database management, may be something that maybe an elusive concept or a very daunting concept, but as managers, it really is about efficiencies and standardization and accountability. And it really does support, no matter what you think, it does support the human elements of things moving forward. Because you'd still need a human to interpret the information and as environmental specialists to apply and implement that information.
It's such a great conversation. It opens up a lot of different avenues for me for the conversation about the philosophy of environmental health and the role of data management as far as like, do we see ourselves as enforcers or as educators? And, when you go out to do an inspection, like if you think of a restaurant, for example, you're there 2 to 4 times a year. And, the impact you can make in those visits versus if you can educate the operator to essentially have a 365-day inspection program in place, that's a much better approach. And I think that's just the role of how we see our job differently around the state. I know that I've worked with people that have had a very heavy enforcement approach, a very untrusting approach. And, I always felt like it was, I'll trust you until I can't. And with my contractors or with my restaurant operators, same thing. And it's about developing those relationships. We're not the enemy. We're not someone they have to hide from. We're partners trying to accomplish the same public health goals. And so it's a very good conversation. This should probably be a whole panel discussion sometime in the future.
I agree. All right, thank you. Next slide. All right, this is the last slide of the presentation. So upcoming priorities, future activities. As environmental health agencies rely heavily on data and their database management systems, participation has been very good with many agencies actively providing input and expressing their needs for future database capabilities. This effort will continue as most environmental health agencies look into options to migrate to new database platforms as Envision Connects becomes a legacy product for Acela. But no, Envision is still fully supported and will continue to be as the development of Acela environmental health continues. The challenges we face include many agencies looking at different providers. I'm sure many of us are getting cold calls and calls from these providers marketing their products. This creates an inconsistent approach, however, to data management and is more difficult to provide solutions on a statewide basis. More work is needed to consolidate data, regardless of the intake and internal database through data aggregators like Google Data Studio or Power BI. Technology and the use of it consistently ranks high as a mechanism to improve organization functions, support, and efficiency. The CCDEH website was identified as being a central tool to manage the organization, not just as a communication tool. To date, the reception has been very good, even with a few bugs that we continue to work through. But, right now, I would say the website is fantastic. Website traffic has stayed steady, and members and non-members are using it consistently. So next year, the priority is continue migration and development of the website to assist member communications, coordination, and access to training technology tools, roll out shared docs, provide training and educational support, continue to support online education, and to provide virtual continuing education programs, continue to evaluate platforms, a good project that Jeff and I are talking about, ensure continued access to state databases where we provide local data, and establish a mechanism where our voices can be heard. I think that's kind of understated. I think many of us have issues communicating the state databases, and utilizing our local database systems. And I think, just even like going back to a single user experience, it's one thing that we need to, as the IT committee, communicate to our state partners. And evaluating partnerships with training companies and organizations to determine the best, most efficient way to improve training tools to our members and to the general public. And lastly, continue to support the annual conference, virtually and in person. And I'm hoping mostly in person. And with that, next slide, I'd like to thank you all for your time and looking forward to the follow-on discussion with any Q&A. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Rick. Awesome presentation. Great job, IT committee. Liz asks a good question and raises a good point as well about it. She says it would be great to pick up the performance management project again so we can visualize the results of our collective work. And, I always used to say what gets measured gets done. And as you report metrics out using IT information, and the data that we collect, being a better data aggregator and being able to communicate your data is a really powerful skill that environmental health, I think we underutilize, and it will help us communicate. I know if we are able to, get our data to visually be able to be presented in a meaningful way. I know that Liz also mentions that should we invest in ArcGIS to help us do that? And GIS is such a powerful tool when you actually see the data. Seeing data is a real great experience. We saw some of that in the Excellence in Environmental Health Awards, also about seeing data and how that can help you tell the story in a way that you can't just verbally communicate it. So I don't know, Rick, if you want to comment on any of that.
I totally agree. And, as with every IT data venture, the question of funding is an issue. And maybe as this organization maybe ventures into doing that collectively, maybe there's a tie into some grant opportunities because it is about data sharing and performance measures and tying that into health measures. And things that we do may have the effects of what we do in terms of a return on investments. I've been trying to find this presentation that I attended years ago that talked about the return on investment of environmental health activities to public health outcomes. And I think, like what Liz is mentioning, getting standard data and tying that into environmental health activities would greatly communicate our purpose and then to the decision makers that provide the funding. I mean, it's not just the outcomes, but, we also have to think about the budget aspect of it and how to get there. And the only way to get there is with a good budget. And to get a good budget, you have to make the decision makers see what we're doing. But yeah, I totally agree. If we can do it, we should as an organization, CCDEH.
Right on. Well, certainly we see the importance of the IT committee. We also, the onboarding and professional development, great information. Dave, I don't know if you're around, or Freddie, if you want to give any final closing comments, but excellent presentations, both of you. It stimulates a lot of good conversation. And Freddie, I think you're got to unhide yourself. All right, final comments back to Freddie and Dave. Freddie, give you the first chance.
All right. Well, again, thank you all. Great presentation. But I also want to thank everyone for participating, taking the time to join us. We look forward to a new year that is coming, and we're looking forward for all of us working together. But it looks like there's really a synergy between IT and professional development, and I think these are projects that we're gonna work on. But I want to really thank our presenters, Terri, Adela, Tim, Cheryl. All of you guys were great. You made this happen. Rick, hey, you hit it out of the ballpark. So we'll tell Jeff you did great. So thank you all, and have a great day. Dave.
All right, Dave. Wrap us up, Dave.
I'd just like to thank everyone for participating. I'd like to especially thank Tim and for his efforts in making this happen. And we could not do this without your help, Tim, and it's greatly appreciated. Cheryl, as always, has done a wonderful job putting everything together. Michelle in the background always, but doing a great job of keeping everything going and getting those certificates put together. Again, thanks to everyone for attending the 2021 CCDEH training conference. And I put the little video that I took diving in my background with the shark, just to remind us that, yeah, there's a lot of sharks out there, but they're not all out to get us.
All right, so we look forward to seeing everyone next year in person.
Exactly.